Starting in 2 seconds.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone. Sorry for the delay. We were working on some technical items. My name is Adrian Markish, and I am the publisher and editor of ModernAnalyst.com, the premier online community for business analysts. I would like to welcome you to today's webinar titled Eliminate BPM Bloat, Lean Business Process Discovery and Implementation for Fast ROI. Today's featured speaker is Nathan Rollins, Senior Director of Product Marketing for Serena Software. The webinar will last approximately 60 minutes, including a question and answer session. So make sure to submit the questions in advance using the questions feature of the webinar software. I would like to also say thank you to Serena Software for sponsoring this event. At this time, I will turn it over to Nathan to get us started.
Thank you, Adrian. Welcome everyone to the webinar. As Adrian said, this is Nathan Rollins of Serena Software. Today we're going to talk about how you can eliminate the bloat typically associated with business process management or BPM projects. I'm going to give you a quick overview of Lean BPM, some guidance of how best to tackle BPM projects, and then show you a demonstration of software that we've developed here at Serena to make it easier than ever to rapidly prototype, deploy, and manage your business processes. At the end of the session, I will, of course, answer any questions that you have. In the billing for this webinar, we talked about Lean BPM. Now, what exactly does it mean to be lean? To understand what we mean by lean, let's take a step back and look at traditional BPM approaches. After all, BPM products have been around for a very long time, and BPM projects have been around much longer than that. Traditional BPM tools were developed to tackle the hairiest, nastiest process problems, things like supply chain management. To solve these ultra-complex problems, software companies developed ultra-complex solutions. Typically, to get off the ground, BPM projects of this ilk required lengthy process discovery sessions with a necessary army of consultants. Those were followed with lots and lots of coding, again with armies of consultants, and perhaps worst of all, whenever the process needed to be changed, you had to call in the same army. That's where Lean BPM comes in. We think that managing the myriad processes that should make an organization hum shouldn't require legions of high-priced brainiacs. It shouldn't require Java programmers. It shouldn't take weeks to implement, let alone months or years. Lean BPM is really about giving you simple solutions, pragmatic solutions to everyday problems. So let's take a step back and look at processes within the enterprise. As you know, looking at your organization, there are enough of these everyday business problems to go around. Today's enterprise is an awful lot like a manufacturing assembly line. Work is passed from person to person, from team to team in order to get things done. Whether you're approving invoices, managing vacation time, or ensuring that you're complying with government mandates, information or work is being passed from one person to another, and very frequently from one system to another. For all of our technical sophistication, these simple processes are often the bottleneck within organizations. Instead of managing processes in a systematic fashion, we tend to resort to email and other less sophisticated means, things that aren't particularly repeatable, to get this sort of work done. Now, doing things via email and spreadsheets or Word docs or whatever it is, if we're not tackling these things systematically, it really leads to three fundamental problems. First being that work isn't routed efficiently across teams and systems. Things that should take minutes to accomplish frequently take much longer than that, We have experience with many of our customers that will tell us that a simple approval process that should just fly through the organization can frequently take days of elapsed time simply because emails are going around, they're getting lost in people's inboxes, there's no way to remind them, and so these sorts of things slow down the organization. Perhaps worse than that, though, is that these processes aren't repeatable, traceable, or auditable. Now, not all processes require a strong audit component. Many of them, however, do. Things that have to do with financial processes, legal processes, anything that's associated with an internal or external best practice or compliance mandate, these sorts of things absolutely need to be traceable and auditable. However, every process is going to benefit by being repeatable. One of the things that we see frequently happen within organizations is that something will go well for a while in managing a process, and then it starts to fail. And the question is, well, what changed here? And oftentimes, because things aren't managed in a systematic way, no one can really pinpoint where things went wrong. We like to say that dumb luck is not a best practice. In order to be successful in process management, you need to do things in a repeatable fashion so that you can improve them, improve the process bit by bit over time. And then finally, as we've discussed already a little bit, current solutions for automating processes are typically expensive, cumbersome, and complex. Simple problems shouldn't require complex solutions. Now, if you're looking at this saying, you know what, this sounds like something that I see within my organization, rest assured you're not alone. As you see here on this slide, leading analysts that talk to many organizations like yours are saying that BPM really needs to change. We have Forrester, for instance, advocating that that we take not just a lean approach, but a lean mindset. We need to rethink the way that we go after business process management projects. And many organizations tackling business processes, making the organization run more efficiently is a top priority. So the good news in all of this is that the fix is fairly simple. Lean BPM makes it easy to deploy process-based applications that solve these common business problems. Because it's so much simpler to create and deploy and use these applications, it dramatically lowers the cost of deploying process-based solutions. And that really then leads to the holy grail, fast return on your investment. Budgets are tight, teams are taxed, overburdened with more work than ever before. And so this sort of quick return on investment is paramount. So let's dig a little bit more into these benefits, and then we'll talk about how you can go about tackling your process problems. So first, when we talk about easy business process development, we're not talking about, hey, you know what, it should be within a couple months you can get things going. We think that processes should be able to be automated in a matter of days. And so we're talking about simple drag-and-drop creation of processes. It shouldn't require programming skills, even to bring in data from external sources or connect to other systems. And that things like auditing, reporting, digital signatures, those sorts of things that support best practices and compliance mandates should be built in, and just a necessary and transparent part of the process management framework. On the deployment side, what we see frequently is that there are many solutions out there for helping you sketch out your process, and there are others for deploying processes and others for doing the things like managing the compliance mandates, but they're fractured. We think it should be one integrated platform that provides all of these things soup to nuts. And allows those that are closest to the business to be involved in creating these process-based applications, but with a controlled path to production that ensures that the right things are done so that as these applications are deployed into production, you don't have issues with other systems. You're not breaking things that are going to cause problems with your compliance mandates. And finally, that the infrastructure shouldn't be burdensome and expensive. Now, this all once again leads to fast return on investment. We see across the board organizations that deploy lean business process management report that conservatively they are able to deploy things in a third of the time that they've done before, that they can build things quickly and deploy them in hours or days, and finally that as things change, as needs change, as processes mature, they can update those things on the fly without consulting projects, without additional development. So to give you just a couple real-world examples, let's talk through just a few. So at Thomson Reuters, after implementing Lean Business Process Management, this was around doing sales proposals. They saw a double-digit increase in employee productivity and were able to get out customer quotes 2,000 times faster than they did before. The key here is that, once again, this didn't require sophisticated programming resources to make it happen. This was done within business units. At the Philadelphia Stock Exchange, they saved 2,500 hours of administrative work around change approval processes that were necessary to show compliance. And another international organization that we can't name specifically saw a 375% increase in productivity around things like processing vacation and leave requests. Now, this final example I think is instructive. There are, within any organization, dozens of simple processes that have always been kind of that nagging problem. But because the solution to those problems historically has required so much work, it hasn't been worth tackling them. And so as we look at Lean Business Process Management, one of the benefits is that it makes it possible to tackle the backlog of requests that have been sitting on the pile for years, because now it's so much simpler to deploy these things. So just to give you an idea, we have hundreds of customers managing thousands of these processes. And they range everything from something simple like a vacation request to managing the fault procedures for nuclear facilities. There are things like Sarbanes-Oxley, government processes, all sorts of processes across the board. The key is that these processes have some things that are really that are fundamentally the same, and that's that work is being passed person to person, system to system, and it needs to be done in a repeatable way. So as you look at your organization, you may have, maybe some of these processes ring true. Maybe as we've been talking here today, other processes have come to mind. Well, chances are there are many of them if you step back and think about it. There are things in sales, things in marketing, things within IT, legal, G&A. You've got processes all across the organization. Well, where do you begin? How do you get started? And this is where we advocate that you take a step back, and instead of trying to boil the ocean, forgive me for mixing metaphors here, but as you begin, don't try to do everything all at once. We advocate that first you pick a process. Find one process. And the reason for this is technology isn't going to be your biggest challenge with your first process. The biggest challenge is going to be getting the various individuals that are involved in a process together and working together to solve the problem. So it's kind of the human change management that's just as big a challenge as anything else. So pick something that, a process that is well understood and touches enough groups that you can cut your teeth on this first process. Our recommendations from watching hundreds of these implementations is that these three things are going to help you more than anything else. First, pick a process that's simple enough to solve quickly. Don't go for your most complex process out of the gate. However, don't go for something that's trivial. Go for something that's valuable enough to matter. So, a problem that is really nagging at the organization. And then consider the process participants. Look for processes that touch people in various organizations that are A, interested in solving the problem, and B, willing to work with you to sketch it out. So that's step one. Choose your process wisely. Step two, what we recommend is that you run a process workshop. Now, this should be a few hours, an afternoon, not something that you do for weeks and weeks. Once again, this is why it's important to pick your process carefully. But gather your process stakeholders together and begin by sketching out the process on a whiteboard. Get them all thinking about what it is that they want to have done. Get everyone in a conference room if you can. If not, you can do it over the web just as easily. I'll show you here in a minute how, if you've got a well-understood process to begin with, you can just start sketching things out directly within a visual designer. But build a pilot there together as a group and shoot for the 80% solution. Don't try to solve every niche case. Just go for that which is going to get the bulk of the work done. And block off a few hours to get it done. And the important thing is that you leave from this workshop with buy-in from all of the groups that, this is the way to go about doing it. And then finally, we've touched on some of this already, but time box your project. As we talked about before, there's all sorts of bloat associated with process management. Some of it is just simply based on human nature. Our tendency is to want to solve every last issue. Fight that tendency at every corner. Define exactly what you want phase one of the application to be. What is just enough in that first application? If you're familiar with Agile or Lean development practices, this is a perfect place to practice those sorts of methodologies. Define your first phase, your first sprint, if you will, or your first release. Avoid things that are outside of the center of the fairway, and then plan on iterative development. Instead of trying to get everything in that process out of the gate, plan on modifying it bit by bit over the course of a few months, over years. This is where we see a mindset shift that's absolutely needed. Some of it is driven by the fact that historically, because we've been doing things with high-priced consultants and these large, heavy, front-loaded projects before, organizations tend to want to get everything documented early on and have every last feature in there to begin with, because they know if they need to change anything down the road, it's going to be even more expensive and even more painful. Well, that's not the way it needs to work. As I'll show you here, making changes is super easy. And so instead, plan on iterations. Plan on something that is going to last over the course of, depending on the process, it could be there for years. And over the course of time, you can make minor tweaks to it to adapt to either changing requirements or to better understanding of what it exactly you want to accomplish. So this is how we recommend getting started with Lean BPM. So I'm going to show you here Serena Business Mashups. This is our product that helps manage, design, manage, and execute business processes. Before I do, I need to explain a little bit about it. So if we take a step back, in the demo that I'm going to show you, I'm going to start on the right side of this diagram, where a user interacts with a browser to approve things, to move work to another group, and so on, right? This is where I get all the reports and information about the process. I'm going to start there and show you a little bit about that. And then we're going to step back once you have a context of what it is we're trying to build, and we will look at how one designs these processes. The key being that it's a simple application, visual design that you can do, like we talked about before, in a conference room. Today we're not going to go into the management and deployment of these process-based applications, but there is a lot of content at Serena.com that will show you how that works. So we're going to demonstrate what we would do in a conference room pilot. I'm going to begin, as we talked about, by going into the browser-based user interface. Now, for the application that we've chosen to go after is one for the hiring procedure. So it begins in gathering candidates and then managing the process of getting interviews scheduled and everyone involved in the hiring of a new employee on the same page. The key here being we're going to box it at that. We could certainly go further where it would tie into things like onboarding, but we're going to do that in the next phase of our project. So I'm going to switch here to this web user interface. And here you see, this is where let's say I'm a hiring manager, I would come in and I have a list of all of my open job requisitions. And the one I'm going to look at today here is for a vice president in research and development. So I click in here and I see that I've got a candidate here. And I've got to check on this candidate, see if this is someone that I think would be good to interview or if it just doesn't pass muster. And so you'll see here that I've got basic information about this particular candidate. And in this case, we're pulling in information from other sites on the web that will give me a little bit more color on this particular candidate. So here we've got, I'm looking at Ali, and I've got his Facebook profile. I can see what's going on here. Apparently Ali just had a birthday. I'm going to also go over to LinkedIn, where I can get information from LinkedIn, and of course then I've got a resume that's being pulled in here as well. So I've got all the information about this particular candidate. Now I could do a few things. One, I could say I want to update some requirements for this particular candidate. So I could come in and say, must understand Agile development. And I could update this. Similarly, I could then, now that I've got this, I could say, let's go ahead and interview Ali. Let me show you what would happen next. I'm going to come over and show you a diagram of this particular process. So the new job requisition came in, and the hiring director said, you know what, this person looks like, past first screening, looks pretty good, came here. Now I am in this state where I'm the hiring manager, and I have a choice. I can say that I want to interview this person or reject this person. So I'm going to come back here, and for now we're going to leave it at this, but I could click on interview, and additional people would be notified. We're going to leave it here because I'm going to show you a little bit more about what we can do. So this is the general process application that we're looking to build. Now let's back up. Let's say that we're all in a conference room, and we want to automate our hiring process. The way that we recommend doing this is to start by sketching it out. You may want to do the very basics on a whiteboard, or you may want to dive in just like this. And I'm going to show you what we're going to do here. So this is our process. You'll see it, it looks just like the diagram I was showing you in the browser interface. And so to add things, to change the process, it's simply a matter of dragging and dropping information. So remember, we were looking in this state. I was the hiring manager, and I had a choice to interview or reject. Let's say that for this particular position, we're going to be working on government contracts, and so there's some qualifications needed, some certification that's needed to ensure that this particular person passes muster. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in another state here, and I'm going to say, you know what, we really need to do a background check. Right? So in this particular spot in the interviewing process, we need to do a background check. So I'm going to grab this arrow here, and I'm going to say, do background check. Okay. Now, we're sketching this out. It's all pretty simple, easy to do together in a conference room. What would happen here is if I were to then publish this and make it available, now when I came back to the user, I pulled up the wrong window here, now when I came back to the web interface, I would have an additional button up here that would say, do background check. And we could go much deeper into this, and I could do all sorts of things, say what happens if the background check succeeds and so on. But the key is it's really simple to sketch out the process. But beyond that, we're sketching out something that can be immediately put into use. Now, that's just the first part of it. To do this background check, I need to collect some information. So I'm going to come down to data design. And it's here that I can say here for my candidates information, I'm going to add some additional information where I need to collect the Social Security number for this particular person in order to run a background check. So now in doing this, I've created some new information that's going to be collected and stored in the database. Didn't require any understanding of databases to do it. And that's all well and good, but I actually need to collect that information to make it meaningful. So I'm going to pop down here to the Visual Designer. Now you'll recognize this looks a lot like the UI that we were seeing via the browser. This is where we design this. So now I see all of the information, all of the fields that are available for me to collect. So I'm going to come in here, and I can start just grabbing all sorts of information. I'm just going to grab this one and drag it over. It's got minimum salary. And you can see here that I can preview this and get a sense of what it's going to look like when it's deployed to the browser. So I design it via this WYSIWYG interface, and then I publish, and it can be used. So once again, in a conference room, it's really easy for people to just start saying, well, I want to get this information or that information, grab it all, build it collaboratively, and within a matter of hours, not only do you have something that everyone can sign off on and say, yep, that's what I want, but it's ready to be deployed and used. Now let's look at one more thing while we're right here. We as you saw in the browser UI, we were looking at information from Facebook and LinkedIn. We have the ability to grab widgets from all sorts of web properties, and you can just drag and drop them on and configure them to get information from any of these sources, as well as very easily connect to other systems via web services, either SOAP-based or REST-based web services, and just quickly connect things so you could be gathering information from Monster.com. You could be posting information to your HR system. It's very easy for information to come in and out of this. So once again, in doing this, you can quickly sketch out your process, get a sense of what it is you need to automate, and then rapidly deploy it. It's just a matter of coming here and saving this, and then if you have the proper permissions, you can automatically deploy it, or, as we talked about before, it can go through an approval process whereby people within IT or others that need to look at a process before it's actually put into production can take a look at it, ensure that it passes muster, and then put it into production. So that's a quick overview of building a process-based application. Very simple to do, and it's the sort of thing that within an afternoon we've seen many teams get together and quickly solve a process problem that's been nagging at them for years and years. So with that, let's go ahead and I'll open this up to questions. I'm just going to open up my question panel here so I can see what questions you have, and I'll take some of your questions, and then we'll go from there. So if you have questions, go ahead.
I was going to say it is time. If you have any questions, go ahead and use the questions feature of the webinar software and submit your question, and Nathan will be able to address them for you.
So let's start with the first question here. The question being, can this be used in conjunction with SharePoint? The answer there is absolutely. We have many customers that use it with SharePoint. If you think of SharePoint, SharePoint has many, many web services available that allow for either documents or metadata information to be exchanged with SharePoint. And so this is a great way of adding process capabilities to the base SharePoint capabilities. For those of you that are specifically interested in SharePoint, please get in touch with us. We have examples of SharePoint-based process applications that we can show you, and would love to get your thoughts on the sort of things that you're looking to do with SharePoint. The next question here, where can we see again the list of processes that can be managed using this application? So we can share the list that we had here in the presentation is number one. And Adrian, do you want to talk a little bit about how we'll be sharing the presentation?
Yeah, both the presentation and the slides will be archived at ModernAnalyst.com within the next 2 or 3 days on our webinar section, so you'll be able to have access both of them there.
Beyond that, if you go to Serena.com and go to our Lean BPM section, there will be a list of pre-built process applications that we have available. You can download them and play around with them, so you'll get an idea of many of the things that we've already done, and you can take one of these applications, similar to the HR onboarding one I just showed you, and you can open it up in the Composer product that I was showing you. It's a free download, and get a sense of how they work. The best thing of all of that is if we have an application out there that is something that you're interested in, you can take it, tweak it to your needs, and go ahead and use it. Next question, is the software interoperable with other operating systems besides Windows? So for those of you that were astute, you would have noticed that I'm using a Mac here, and so the browser user interface where participants in the process interact with the software, it can be accessed via Mac and Windows. The designer itself, so this particular application, is a Windows application. We built it to look and function a lot like a Microsoft Office application, expecting that the people that will be using it will be most familiar with Office, kind of power Office users. So it's Windows-based. The rest of it, though, is all through a browser and cross-platform. Next question. What skills are required for beginners or fresh graduates entering this field of business analysis? Really good question. It's a little bit beyond what we're going to talk about today, but I can give you, a quick answer. As you look at typical organizations today, I think the business analyst can play an instrumental role in bridging the gap between IT and the business. In fact, the way we see it, organizations are, the divide between IT and business is really going away. As more and more tech-savvy people enter the business, the expectation of what software can do is just growing quickly. And so the role of a business analyst, we think, is to be the facilitator, to get people in a room and do things like these process workshops where, instead of just going out and gathering requirements, it's someone that can kind of be the arbiter of all of this, all of the knowledge, and an arbiter of the dialogue, get people together and quickly solve problems in a pragmatic way. Next question, how does Lean improve BPM? So the single biggest thing is that Lean is pragmatic. Lean solves business process management problems in a way that gets them done fast, for much less money, and ultimately, from our experience, with much greater satisfaction among end user communities. Many of our customers, ranging from mid-sized businesses to many of the largest businesses in the world, already have kind of traditional large-scale business process management solutions. They come to us, however, when they say, you know what, it's just too expensive or too cumbersome to tackle all of these process problems with the same system that we bought to automate our manufacturing assembly line, or something like that. And so Lean BPM it improves on BPM by making it possible to tackle the dozens, if not hundreds or thousands of other processes that are waiting for solutions within organizations. Let's see. I'm just going down the list here. Got a question about doing this presentation for the IIBA. Absolutely. Just talk with us. Next one. How do you approach designing a brand new process that hadn't been deployed before? So for this particular demo, I started with something that was already there. It wouldn't be that much different if you were doing it from scratch. In fact, as a marketing team here at Serena, we've done this several times. And really, the process is simply a matter of distilling the steps down So, okay, what needs to get handed off and when? What information needs to be collected? And who are the people that are going to be involved? If you get those three things and have a pretty clear understanding of kind of the machine that is that particular process, then it becomes really easy to just start sketching it out. And once again, start with something simple. Don't try to boil the ocean, and you'll be well on your way. Next question. Do you need to design a user interface as part of the process design? So the way that the product works is for each step along the process, there are forms where you click a button to say move it to this step or this step, and you collect some information. You can either use some default forms that that we'll put for any state in the process, or you can design forms similar to what we were looking at before by dragging and dropping fields in the WYSIWYG editor. So the answer is you don't have to, but we find that most people want to create a form that that looks familiar, that seems to fit in with the organization. So it may be that people create forms, that you'll create forms that look like other applications that you have within your organization, just to make it as easy as possible for individuals to use the process. The question here, with various network restrictions that are typical in well-established IT setups, corporate security directives, and so on, how would you look at the use of mashups involving external references to places like Facebook and so on? Great question. So for many of these, the information's just going over open ports within the firewall, depending on your setup. So, if it's something like in the example I just gave here with Facebook, depending on your security protocols, it could be very simple. Otherwise, this is where the kind of the approval process is very key, because you may have certain ports locked down. You may want to ensure that certain information isn't shuttled across outside of your firewall. And so you can quickly design these things, but then as part of the approval process of pushing the business process application into production, other people within the organization can look at it and say, oh, you know what, we don't want to use the service in quite that way. Next question here. So Composer looks like a great application, and I can see its value. Not to be cavalier, but why would you need developers and other roles involved in software development, as this seems to do it all? So very interesting comment. It's certainly one that we've heard before. At Serena, we create software for developing applications in many different ways. Our thinking on this is that, and this is echoed by Gartner and many others, the application development, the way that we develop applications, is going through a fundamental shift. There will continue to be the need for many people that are coding in Java and .NET and everything else. But the goal, or the charter of a lot of this is going to change. And instead of creating every time a monolithic application, developers will be creating, think of the Lego bricks that will be assembled into new applications. That it's similar to the promise of services-oriented architectures, but in, once again, a more pragmatic way. And so we don't think developers are going away, but the things that they develop and the expectation of what will happen to those applications down the, further down in the factory, within the organization, is changing. Next question. How can a project manager best use Lean BPM? and what important role would he or she play in the daily operations or transition. Another interesting question. There's a lot of discussion going on about this in the industry right now. If you recall, as we talked about the process workshop, we talked about the need for these things to be iterative. The fact that processes are going to change and you don't want to boil the ocean out of the gate, we think is a very interesting opportunity for project managers because these are going to require people that understand agile methods, that are comfortable with managing iterative projects, that can kind of shepherd these things through the organization rather than the more traditional kind of do it once, move on to the next sort of project. So I think there's a great opportunity for project managers in this. Next question, is the best tool Lean Six Sigma for improving processes? I need a little bit more context on this particular question, but one thing to note is that as we talk about lean business process management, and analysts like Forrester, for instance, are talking about lean business process management and lean development, we're not using the term in the traditional Lean Six Sigma sense, at least not strictly. What we're talking about more is when you hear lean, think more pragmatic, quick, iterative. It's kind of more along those lines. A few more questions here. How does this product fit into a small business, small-size company? If your small company is anything like the small companies I've worked at or am familiar with, you probably don't have large IT staff. You likely don't have a lot of infrastructure. So one of the things that you can do with Lean BPM is that, first of all, as we've talked about here, it's easy to quickly create these these process-based applications. But beyond that, you can deploy them to the cloud, software as a service. So you can deploy them either behind the firewall to your own servers, or Serena has servers where you can deploy them there as well. So, as a small or mid-sized business, or enterprise, of course, as well, but you can take advantage of these things without requiring that you maintain infrastructure in-house. The next question, what functions does Lean BPM not have that are needed for complex processes? So if you look at large-scale business process management suites, they are exactly that. They are suites. They typically have many, many different modules. And so to give you an example, one thing that Lean BPM doesn't tackle is business process optimization. So it doesn't do simulation of processes and show you where the bottlenecks are and assume that you're running a million transitions a day exactly where you're going to run into issues. That's more today. That's more the purview of these large-scale suites that are focused on things like your supply chain management, where you're running millions of transactions through or transitions through the system. So business process management does many of the same things of a large BPM suite, but it really focuses on those things that are going to be universal across just about any process. Next question. This demo has highlighted a human-centric process. Can you talk a little bit about the use of an integration-intensive process? So very astute observation. We started here with a human process. In fact, we recommend that as you start with your first process, you look at something that's very human-centric, because getting a bunch of different people bought into it is going to be important. But Let me give you an example of something that's more system-to-system process. So let's say that we're using Salesforce.com for our customer relationship management system. And we really need to do sales approvals on the side of it. So now we've got a human process that needs to exchange information with Salesforce.com. What would happen here is that similar to what we designed for the human process, we can bring in a web service from Salesforce.com or any other system, and then via point and click, design what information is going to be exchanged between the systems and how that's going to happen, so that someone within Salesforce can say, hey, I need approval. It triggers a human process that may go go through many different steps. It could talk to many different systems, and all the while is sending information back to Salesforce.com or SAP or whatever other system there is. We don't have time to go into that in this particular session today, but once again, if you go to Serena.com, there are videos showing more system-to-system interactions using the software. Question, does the software help to determine the sequence or priority in which the processes should be made lean in BPM? If I'm understanding the question right, it's, hey, does it help you determine which process should be tackled first? And it doesn't. We think that that's something that, in fact, I'm not aware of any software out there that can look at all your processes and say, hey, this is the top one that you should tackle. It's really going to be as dependent on human factors within your organization as it is on technical factors. So that's where stepping back, if you're going to tackle one of these BPM projects, look at the individuals within your organization, leading the groups that would be involved, and they're going to be just as important as anything else. We are almost out of time here. I'm not going to be able to get to all of the questions here, but I'll take just a couple more. So how do you compare this to a BPM tool like Microsoft Visio? There is one very important difference between what I've shown you here in Visio. When you're done with a Visio diagram, you have to go build. You've sketched it out in Visio, then you have to go build it in some application to make it run. What we have here, as we've sketched out this diagram, is much more than just a blueprint. Now what I've got is something that as soon as I publish this to a server, all the intelligence is there for it to be brought to life. So once again, lots of demos of this on Serena.com where you can go see how the next step in the demo that I showed you today is just publish this to a server, and all of those changes that we just diagrammed now will show up in the browser UI. So in a matter of minutes, I make my change here within the Visual Designer, publish it, and it's a working application. I'm going to take one more question. How much does the software cost? For you today, no, I'm just kidding. So if you, we offer this Lean BPM in a couple of different ways. You can buy it for on-premise deployments where it's done on a user basis. This is a traditional software license, or it can also be purchased and deployed on demand. And so the price points are going to be different for both of those. Please Let us know specifically what sorts of things you're looking at doing with the application, and we can give you more information on what it will cost. The short answer is it's going to cost a heck of a lot less than anything else out there. So we're running out of time. We'll get questions answered for those of you that didn't get your questions answered here today. As Adrian mentioned, this presentation will be available on the web. And please don't hesitate to get in contact with us if you've got additional questions about anything in here, or if it sparked ideas of other things that you'd like to learn more about. Really appreciate your time. Thanks for joining the webinar, and Adrian, I'll hand it back to you.
Great. Yes, thank you again for everybody for attending this Modern Analyst webinar, and many thanks to Nathan for a very informative presentation. Again, I wanted to remind you that the webinar, along with the slides, will be archived at ModernAnalyst.com within a few days, and will be there indefinitely. This concludes today's event. Thank you very much, and we hope you have a great day.